Good Tuesday to you, everybody in Gov 603. Welcome again to week. Boom, bam, 15, and our discussion and review of week, bang, 14. As you can see, it is late in the day, hence the darkness. I suppose I could turn on some more lights. Nonetheless, just a little tea. A little too late for coffee. I am sufficiently caffeinated, I will tell you. Okay. Last week of readings and discussions. Okay. A reminder, all right, that you have a final exam coming up and you have final papers due coming up. So papers are due on December the 3rd. Final exam will open up December the 4th and close December the 5th. So make sure that you are ready. And remember, there's not going to be a review sheet. You review Blackboard and you'll be ready. All right. And watch my videos. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the questions from last week. See what we can garner by way of understanding and any additional information. And then we will take it from there. Last week, focus was on presentation. That is your work, not like it's da-da-da-da-da. Very, very important as a researcher. You could have stumbled on the most valuable finding in the history of the world. But if you can't effectively communicate that to an audience, it is like a gem locked in a box. That is, it has no value. So you got to learn to get it out there, make yourself known and noticeable in writing. All right, so question number 1 from table 10, 2 in chapter 10. Select one of the 3 listed sentences, A, B, or C. Copy the sentence and print it out. Correct the sentence by hand with a pen. Rewrite it by hand. Post the JPEG of your work so we can have a lookie and see how you did. All right, Jacob, let's just start with you. So the sentence is, and what did you do here? Oh, here we go. If it is necessary to look for the cause that underlies this conflict, argued Shelton, 1986, so there's an APA citation, then we have to look back all the way to the end of the Roman Empire. Yikes, there's a lot going on there by way of verbiage. Okay, so here, Jacob, is your correction. Shelton argued that examining the Roman Empire can provide context to understand the causes of the conflict. Okay, good. Now you could, so from 18 or 32 to 18 words, good. Could we reduce that even further? Could we say Shelton argued that, let's see, can we take out examining the Roman Empire provides, we'll get rid of the can, okay, context to understand the conflict. So we have 1, 2, 3 more words removed. So we could take that down to 15. Okay. Let's see. Let's take somebody else next. Let's go with Nicole. The need for him to write a book to answer that question, however, is entirely due to his own predilection for verbosity. It is also born of the sincerity of his belief in his own brilliance. Okay, and the reason you find me, pausing is because I'm reading through the crossed out redacted text that Nicole has put in here. Let's take a look. That's 36 words. Let's reduce. Let's see what we get. His preference for wordiness and his belief in his own intelligence resulted in him writing a book answering that question. Okay, now you've taken a little bit much out of here because I think you've lost some of the sense, but let's take a look at this. His preference for wordiness. How about, could we get rid of preference? Okay, could we just say his wordiness and belief in his own intelligence, okay, resulted, let's see, I'm going to write a book. You need to write a book. Okay, resulted, et cetera, et cetera. So we could take that down even further. Let's do one more. Let's see who we got here. Yours happens to be sideways, Megan, and that's not helping me right now. Okay, let's do Corey. Okay, that's a little small. Let's try Joshua. All right, very big. There are a multitude of explanations as for why rain brings down the turnout of Democrat voters, as argued by Johnson, and then the APA citation 2003. Okay, now what you want is the word count, but let's take a look at the corrected sentence. Johnson argued. So now we're back to an active construction. Johnson argued, and you could even redact that further. You don't necessarily need the that. Johnson argued there are multiple explanations why rain, and instead of brings down, could we put that into a singular word? Reduces the turnout or suppresses or whatever you like of Democrat voters. Okay, 2003 citation. Okay, so you get the drift of the exercise. All right, reduce, simplify up to the point where it doesn't make any more sense. Can this be difficult work? Yes, it can. Can it be tedious work sometimes? Yes, it can. But writing is perhaps one of the most natural things that we people do. So it just is. All right, question number 2. Please explain how you should write up the results of a regression analysis. In doing so, please list and define all the standard symbols, N, R, R squared, P, etc., in the regression analysis results. I'll tell you, right now, you need to know these for the test. Okay, Corey, let's take you because you went first. When presenting the result of regression analysis, a typical write-up might include a statement of the model used, i.e. simple linear regression, equation of the regression line, y equals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The value of the coefficients, okay. And by the way, writing out the regression equation, if you're working it by hand, yes. For most of the software that you use, like SPSS, you don't need this. But that's not a criticism, Corey, just to let you know. The value of the correlation coefficient R, or the coefficient of determined R squared, to describe the strength and direction of the relationship. The p-value associated with each coefficient determine their statistical significance. Okay. I want to make sure, let me emphasize, that everyone understands this. So pause a wee bit on this question, read through the answers from your classmates, and Corey's got it right here. If you do not understand, reach out to me. Okay, and then the symbols. M represents the sample size, R denotes the correlation coefficient, specifically Pearson correlation coefficient is simple linear regression. It measures the strength and direction of the linear relationship between two variables. R squared, also known as the coefficient of determination, it represents the proportion of variance in the dependent variable. We remember this from our COVID linear regression. All right, R squared tells us how, in terms of percentage, how much of the outcome variable or the dependent variable, whatever term you like, how much of, percentage-wise of it being what it is was driven by the independent variable, the first variable. And remember this, the striking increase in R squared when you added in comorbidities for people who had COVID and experience a severe outcome. Okay. All right. So be super familiar with the write-up and the terminology for regression analysis. Okay. Question number 3. Of the 8 items in the delivery structure for a paper, which one do you believe is most important for a research paper as a whole and its presentation? Briefly explain. Okay. Now, there isn't necessarily a right answer for this. I was interested in what you had to say. There are a few sections that are more important than the others. Patrina, let's take you. The thesis statement is the most critical component of research. Paper's delivery structure provides the reader with a clear path to comprehend the relevance and emphasize the study brief, et cetera, et cetera. That is true. You can say the thesis statement and or the abstract. When I'm searching for research material, do I in the early stages, do I read through all of the article? No. I look for articles with strong abstracts. Why? Because number one, a strong abstract tells me what's in this thing, both by way of, or I should say, all by way of focus, data, methodology, and big picture conclusions. You'll develop a sense as a researcher who's done their work well in the papers that you're going to read, and shocker, not everything gets published. Not everything that gets published has been done well. Okay. So don't just don't assume just because it's in print it's phantasmagorical. Karina, let's take you for a second one. Personally, I believe that the thesis statement is most important. Right? There seems to be general agreement. So, if you saw this on an exam, it might be, according to the class, people felt that, something like that. Okay. Question number 4. Of the two research methodologies that we've covered in this class, qualitative, quantitative, which one are you most drawn to as a researcher? Again, this question was completely open-ended. Colin, let's see what you had to say. Qualitative research for sure. Okay. I like qualitative research, but quite honestly, to do it is labor intensive, because you have to amass large quantities of cumbersome data. What do I mean by cumbersome? Unlike, say, quantitative research in which you can plug numbers into a system. Now, there are programs for qualitative research, but the getting of the data in, there's just so much more legwork. Sean, at first I would have said quantitative because I like the order and rigidity that it carries. But learning some more intricate aspects of research in this class, I may be ready to cross over to the qualitative camp. Okay, over to the dark side you go. Okay, so this was a question that, sort of, what do you think? Now, by way of exam, you should know as soon as you see it, a definition or fill in the blank for the difference between qualitative and quantitative research. Just bam. Okay. And then week 14 contained yet another bonus question. Okay, I think there was 2 weeks back. Question number 5. Throughout the semester, and by the way, bonus, you get the points, but I don't increase the possible points in the class. That's why it's bonus. Throughout the semester, you have heard me say, as a researcher, be an investigator, not an advocator. What have I meant by this? How can this caveat be reconciled with Regent University's mission to produce Christian leaders to transform the world? Okay. So by way of the test, be absolutely sure that you're clear on what that dictum means. As a researcher, be an investigator, not an advocator. Jacob, let's see what you said. Researchers must be investigators, not advocates, to ensure they reduce bias in their work and conduct comprehensive research to support or disprove the hypothesis. Regent University's mission can be used as a guide to prevent advocacy. Leadership entails examining the problems from multiple angles and selecting best course of action to resolve it. Similarly, an investigative mindset in research will allow the researcher to produce work that can stand against peer criticism from every angle. Yes, that is what we're looking for. Look, folks, whether your faith comes through in your research or not, and whether you are in an academic setting, you go on and you do a PhD, or you go to work with a master's degree, and you've got something to write up, and you're writing up a white paper if you're working in a government agency, or you're writing up a status report. The world is full of not so nice people. And I'm going to tell you that, maybe there's someone who wants your job. Maybe there's someone who just doesn't like you because, Who knows what their problem was? They weren't cuddled enough as a kid. I mean, who knows? Maybe you're working for an organization that takes a controversial perspective on something. There are going to be those who oppose you. Don't hand them any ammunition to take your arguments apart. If you begin your research with advocacy rather than investigation, you're handing them the tool of your undoing and say, oh, well, we can't believe what she says. Look, she's biased. I mean, here's the peculiar nature of this century that we live in, early 21st century. It is frequently said that one should not be too religious. One can be too religious in one's outlook, that it shouldn't interfere with politics, that it shouldn't inform culture, that you should leave it out of your choices as a consumer. All of that, by the way, is BS. But there's this presumption that as Christians, we can be just too religious. When do you ever hear, or do you ever hear, the enjoiner, the adjoiner, the caveat, you shouldn't be too secular. You could be too secular. You can be too secular in your politics. You can be too secular as a consumer. You can be too secular in social issues. You should leave your secular views out of these things. When do you hear that? Never. So, especially if you go to work and your faith is expressed through your work, learn to be a solid investigator, and then use the well-studied, planned, and executed findings as your advocacy. Use what you find as an impartial investigator to spend your time as an advocator. You can be a Christian advocator. I'm a Christian advocator. But perfect your research method. Okay? That's what we're getting at. All right, everybody. One more week, and the readings for this week are just like, just like that. And you're good to go, and then you can relax and take a Christmas break. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of the week, and I will see you on Canvas. Bye-bye.